Hey everyone, back for the continuation or part 2 of the NHL predictions for 2021. Before I get started, I just want to give a huge thanks to Evan Berger for a fresh new beat that he composed just for me. I know sometimes, it gets annoying when you hear shout outs and things like that, but this is a guy who's been making music just for my videos. And, if I was in that position and I was trying to promote my channel, trying to grow, I would want someone to be there and help me out as well. So I hope you can respect and appreciate this partnership. Anyways, I'm going to try and put together a video that will still appeal to you all, but I found that it was very, very time consuming to do just the last video. I mean, the writing for everything took over 6 hours, and obviously like the producing and putting everything together, even for the previous part, took about an extra 4 or 5. So just bear with me a little bit. I'm going to try and still make it visually appealing for you, but it's not going to be quite as fancy, but I hope that you can still enjoy it. And yeah, on to part 2 of the predictions. So for all you Red Wings fans watching, you're going to like this one, as I did not have Detroit at the bottom, but rather the Chicago Blackhawks. As most of you know, the team has been in an awkward spot recently. After winning 3 Stanley Cups and building a dynasty, the Hawks are now in what resembles a limbo almost, maybe like Pittsburgh, as they're rebuilding obviously, but they still have some of their core players from their previous Cup days remaining in the lineup. With the absences of Jonathan Toews, Kirby Dach, and Alex Nylander, paired with shaky at best goaltending in the crease with Malcolm Subban as a starter, it's hard to have Chicago anywhere but here, considering the unfortunate place that they're currently in. And speaking of the Motor City, second from the last, I had the Detroit Red Wings. And really, there's a lot to like about this team, to be honest, as they did make some great strides in the right direction, with bringing in Thomas Greiss and solidifying their top 6 with Robbie Fabry and Bobby Ryan. While Mark Stahl does, similarly to Ryan, have a lot to prove, maybe he'll have a better year in a market that's a little less expected. Coming in at 6th, I had the Florida Panthers. Not many big additions aside from Patrick Hornquist and Alexander Wennberg, although they did acquire some depth players, such as Carter Verhaeghe and Marcus Nudihara. I think the most interesting thing about this team, though, over the offseason was the formation and establishment of their goaltending excellence program, which will be led by Roberto Luongo. I thought this was a great move from an organizational standpoint, as their biggest weakness, in my opinion, last season was their goaltending. Hopefully we can see Bob still have a bounce-back year, and Scott Darling possibly find some redemption after all. So, just a funny side note here. Before I get into the reasoning behind the Preds being in 5th, while everyone is calling the Calgary Flames the Calgary Canucks, well, let me introduce you to the Nashville Wild. Seriously though, Luke Kunin, Eric Haula, and Mikhail Granlund were all in Minnesota at one point, and somehow all found their way to the Music City. Anyways, the additions that I just mentioned are definitely going to help the team, as they parted ways with guys like Kalturis, and really just imagine that second line there. Duchesne setting up the speedster and Haula left and right is going to be something. I think for Nashville, their biggest key to remaining competitive will be improving their special teams. As we all know, they're very defensive, led by their captain Roman Josi. I also think Matt Duchesne will be looking to bounce back, as he wasn't the greatest during the postseason. Really not too high on Pekka Rinne backing up Saros, as he struggled immensely last season, and will have to be relied upon more so in this one. But hopefully, the team can still remain competitive and rely on their defensive style to win games. While this one may really surprise some people, while I would have probably had them higher if they didn't have so many injuries going in, I had to be realistic and place the Stars in 4th. Seguin and Bishop are both set to miss the beginning of the season due to off-season surgeries. And while this is kind of the norm for Bishop to be absent, the team will have a real challenge on their hands trying to compensate for Seguin offensively. While they did lose guys like Corey Perry, they didn't really bring in any high-profile players, but it's not like they really needed to, as they're still a very elite and skilled team even without their main trigger man in the lineup. Probably my biggest what you'd label dark horse or hot take on this list, I had the Blue Jackets 3rd from the top. Why? Well, if you just look at how well they did last season, and especially in the bubble, you can really tell that this team just keeps getting better and better. Sure, they lost Panarin and Bobrovsky, but in my opinion, having a guy like John Tortorella behind the bench there has been the best thing they could have asked for, even though I'm sure Dubois disagrees. Anyways, if you study their work ethic, their style of play paired with an above-average goalie tandem going in, and a motivated Max Domi up front, I really believe this team has all the right tools to be one of the best in the division. And in my opinion, if they just had one more elite star player on their roster, I'd easily have them in first. Second, and possibly another shocker, I had the Tampa Bay Lightning. Yes, I know, this team is great on paper, and they were amazingly impressive last postseason. But will they be able to remain at the top without their leading scorer in Nikita Kucherov in the lineup? While they do have Stamkos returning, which is a great sign, will they be able to do it again is the ultimate question. While I could definitely see them snagging the top spot, there's one team that I believe has a legit opportunity to top them. Segue to the Carolina Hurricanes. Mostly the same team that defeated the most offensively skilled team with a Zamboni driver in net. Yeah, them. The best team there is, in my opinion, when it comes to pure puck possession. They have elite defense, with Jacob Slavin, Dougie Hamilton on the first pair, combined with offensive talents like Sebastian Aho and Andrei Svechnikov. When I think about the perfect team for grinding guys down and providing depth, Carolina definitely comes to mind. While they may not have a pure superstar in net, or even an elite tandem, Peter Mrazek and James Reimer weren't terrible last season, just not in the running for the Vezina. But teams such as Edmonton or Toronto will probably still struggle with their tandems, I really believe. They don't have something that the Canes definitely have, and that's a solid defensive core. And in my opinion, it'll almost make up for having close to average tendies in net. And finally, out west, where I think things are the most cut and dry. Starting off, I had the Kings, who have been known to be one of the bottom feeders in their respective division for the past couple seasons. But I have to give them some credit, as they did get something they were in desperate need of: speed. With the acquisition of Andreas, and I think that's definitely going to help their older core be able to keep up with some younger opponents. Getting Ole Mata, however, remains to be seen, if he's going to help them or hurt them defensively. But I guess we'll see. I think this will be a season where we'll see up-and-comer Cal Peterson take the reins a little more and start more games than that. But I don't see any other real improvements in the lineup outside of the fact that they're doing a great job in drafting and slowly rebuilding. Yep, you guessed right. We're going to be staying in the Golden State for quite a bit. But you know, the Ducks do have some great talent coming in. They've got Trevor Zegras and Jamie Drysdale, to name a couple, that are still developing. Even though I do have them low, Anaheim is one of those teams that I think has the potential to surprise a lot of people. They've got a great goalie tandem, they're gritty and far from pushovers. Even though they're slowly rebuilding, there's still a lot to like about this team. So when a GM goes out and gets a non-elite goaltender kinda on purpose, such as Detroit did or Minnesota, you kinda know that they've smelled the coffee, aka seen reality. The reality here is, for San Jose, in my opinion, that they're far from the same team that they were in the Stanley Cup Finals in 2016. But hey, they got Patrick Marleau back, right? Nah, I hope the best for this guy, really, in his pursuit to top some records. Even still, the top 6 looks pretty competitive and decent, and defense isn't bad. I just think it depends on which Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson we get this season, as in they have so much potential to be elite, and I'm sure that they'll be coming back with a chip on their shoulders, trying to prove something. I think it's going to be interesting to see Jones and the Dubnyk tandem play out, and really see if Jones will be keeping the solidified position, they'll be splitting it down the middle, or if Dubnyk will be taking the crease as a number 1. I can just hear Paul Biznasty Bissonnette howling, or possibly crying with this ranking. After we saw the departure of Taylor Hall, he didn't really seem to be replaced, at least with a player of his caliber. Although they did make some moves for depth, including Derek Brassard and Tyler Pitlick. I really like Clayton Keller as a player, and their first line. Also, Kessel on the second has a lot to prove coming in after having an off year last season. With the general mood in the desert being drab, this club will be facing adversity. But hey, sometimes teams can really surprise you when their backs are against the wall. Anyways, I love their 1-2 punch in net with Ronta and Kemper, and if this team does all of the right things and plays smart, I could see them making a possible playoff push. Honestly, to me, I know Minnesota lost Eric Stahl, and he was a key player for them. But when I look at this team, wow, I really think they're going to do some damage. Plus, if you really think about it, this format and situation, specifically in my opinion, is going to benefit the Wild. Why? They're deep, defensive, they've got decent goaltending, and tons of experienced vets in the lineup. They've been at the door, I believe, for a long time, close to breaking out and doing something great. And I think this could be their year, where they begin to set themselves apart. They got several depth guys going in, such as Nick Bonino and Marcus Johansson. And their first 2 defensive pairings, to me, look elite. Sprinkle a little offensive talent in there from Kevin Fiala or Zach Parise, paired with grit from guys like Marcus Foligno and Jordan Greenway, and you've got a recipe for some real potential success in my book. Coming in third, I had the St. Louis Blues, who really look amazing on paper. With the additions of Mike Kaufman and Torrey, to name a couple, they're going to be tough to contend with. And also Kyle Clifford was a steal in my opinion. He fits into their style of wearing teams down with grit perfectly. It may take Krug a little bit to find his footing though, as he's been a long-time fixture as a Bruin, and will be trying to find his new role. My guy Parayko, aka Drago, is coming back from an off year, so he'll be looking to have a bounce-back season, with Krug on the first pairing. I do have some questions with their net minding though. Jordan Bennington, even though he's definitely still elite, looked very shaky last postseason, and their backup hasn't really had much time to prove himself either yet. If the defense steps up more, along with Benner improving his game, I mean, wow, this team is still a well-oiled machine to me, like they were back in 2019. As I said, I think this division seems to be the easiest to try and predict, except when it comes to these top two. In the Avs and the Golden Knights, they're both extremely well-rounded and put together, with rosters bursting with talent. For me though, personally, even though it was tough, I chose the Avs finishing in second best. They have such a great team. Their first line is one of the best in the league. Their defense is stacked, led by Calder recipient Cale Makar. There's so much to like about this team here. But similarly to St. Louis, I think their Achilles heel ultimately, as we saw in the playoffs, will be their goaltending. As they failed to really find that number one guy in the offseason, the team is still going to have the Grubauer-Francois tandem. And honestly, if they did just have one elite tendy, I'd easily have them in first. But I just feel like that's going to be the ultimate decider, considering the schedule's format. And that leaves us with the first choice in the West. Very stacked team here. Yes, they did lose Nate Schmidt, but it was the price they were willing to pay in order to sign a number one D-man in Alex Pietrangelo. This guy will not only be bringing Stanley Cup experience, but also offensive talent and excellent play on both ends. Now, I'm not betting on him winning the Norris right off or anything rash, but the right side on the D-core is going to be elite. Petro, followed by Shea Theodore, are going to both provide supplemental scoring. This team really just has it all. Goaltending, grit, speed, defensive expertise. I would honestly be shocked if they didn't finish in first, to be honest. And hopefully, I'm not jinxing it. Feel free to leave your full predictions in the comments, but remember to be nice to each other, because opinions are just opinions. Several are different, and you can actually disagree and still be civil, just in case you weren't aware of that.